This episode is brought to you by DistroKid.
When you think about businesses that are selling through the roof, like Skims or Allbirds, sure, you think about a great product, a cool brand, and great marketing. But an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business, making selling and for shoppers buying simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. It's home of ShopPay, the #1 checkout in the world. You can use it to boost conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going through to checkout. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout Allbirds uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/income, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/income to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/income.
Hey everyone, today's guest is Eric Cannata, guitarist for the Irvine, California rock band Young the Giant. Together we break down the writing, recording, and inspiration behind the smash hit single, Mind Over Matter, taken from their 2014 full-length album of the same name. Mind Over Matter has amassed over 250 million Spotify plays, with no signs of slowing down. Not bad for the third and final single from the album, which Eric explained saying the band were young, making a second record, and didn't want to alienate their fan base, but also didn't want to throw them a huge curveball right out of the gate. Saving Mind Over Matter for the last single made sense. Producer Justin Meldal-Johnsen, also known as JMJ, completely crushes everything about this production. The layers and sonics are huge. And a Krista Makes a Podcast alumni also makes an appearance on the track, that being none other than Roger Joseph Manning Jr., formerly of Jellyfish, who played and conducted strings. So sit back, relax, and put your mind over matter.
Hey, hey, have you heard? Krista Makes a Podcast. Hey, hey, have you heard? Krista Makes a Podcast. Hey, hey, have you heard? Krista Makes a Podcast. Hey, hey, have you heard? Krista Makes a Podcast.
So before we started rolling, Eric, we were talking about bands from your youth growing up, and you said you checked out some of the guests I've had on the show here, and a lot of them were people that you admired growing up. And I talked to a lot of people, and they say, you seem like you know all these bands. I'm like, well, Hollywood's only so big, just because Less Than Jake doesn't sound like Young the Giant or vice versa. As I've found out combing through this, I've connected a lot of dots between all the people that we know. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's a small world. I remember growing up and thinking, oh, it'd be so cool to meet this band or this artist, and that I was listening to when I was younger, and then to realize that we're on the same festival bill, and you have a chance to really get to know a lot of these artists that you grew up listening to. It's pretty amazing. Let's
talk about that a little bit. I don't get into that too much on the show, and before we get anywhere near the song, you just said artists I grew up listening to, and you're one of those artists now. Your band is huge, and what you've achieved is so special. I know that.
Thank you.
But what is that like? What is, you grew up listening to these bands, and most of the bands that you mentioned to me before, you've eclipsed them, at least in terms of ticket sales popularity, the musical dream, whatever. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's surreal to be, in a band that is able to play big shows and put out records, and it is really surreal. But it's I've realized that when there's younger people in bands or younger artists, and I get a chance to speak with them, or they send me their song or their EP or whatever project they're working on, I think back to when I was younger, and I wish I had done that more, just kind of reached out, because I do think it's this day and age especially, it's not as difficult to kind of get in touch with your heroes. And so every once in a blue moon, whether it's someone through a friend of a friend of a friend's kid, or my mom's hairdresser's niece, whatever it is, it's so cool to hear what young people are working on. And I've had emails come through of from parents saying, hey, this is my son's first song ever, and they recorded it on GarageBand. And it's so cool to be able to kind of encourage them and root for them and give them, tips or thoughts.
The listeners here know I have a segment at the end of the show called Band You Might Not Know. I've been doing it for 5 years, and I feature an unsigned or a band that's just starting out and just give them a shot, play 30-second snippet of their song. And it's amazing the quality of recordings that I get. 20 years ago, 25 years ago, you didn't have the technology just to upload, boom, and send an amazing sounding demo to somebody. It's awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah. And what young people and people starting out are doing with the technology and the way they're recording, and a lot of studio engineers and people who have been doing it for a lot of years would be like, oh, that's not the technical or the right way to do it. And then some of these recordings are so interesting and boundary pushing.
Yeah, they're recording them on MacBooks. It's like, how did you achieve this sound? But they don't, their head was never wrapped around this huge studio and all these wires and these amps, and this is their world, and they're approaching it from a different aspect. It's very interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, this song, Mind Over Matter, it's everywhere. I mean, I still hear it all the time. The song came out about 11 years ago now. It was released January 2014 on Fueled by Ramen, which there's a little piece of our history there. Vinny Fiorello, Less Than Jake's original drummer, started Fueled by Ramen out of my old apartment back in the day. I noticed that Carlos de la Garza, who used to play in Real Big Fish, did percussion on this record, and then realized that his two daughters are in the Linda Lindas. I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah. Yeah. So Carlos engineered the album, and also his percussion credit was just the him and Justin Meldal-Johnsen, JMJ, who produced the album. They have a few percussion credits on the record, but yeah, Carlos engineered the entire record, and what an amazing both of them. But Carlos is just such a nice guy.
And we've also had Roger Joseph Manning Jr. on Krista Makes a Podcast, who of course conducted the strings and arrangements for all the synths, which he's in another world himself. Yeah.
Roger, the first time we had ever worked with Roger, we didn't meet him, but on our first album, Joe Ciccarelli, who was producing our first album, brought him in to do some keys on a few songs. Brought him in, meaning he did it remotely, actually, at the time, so we didn't even get a chance to meet him. And then the second album, JMJ, who produced the record, had been playing with Roger for years and years with Beck. And so he brought Roger in to do the string arranging.
It's so cool. And let's talk about Justin Meldal-Johnsen a little bit. He's worked with Beck, as you said, 9 Inch Nails. I did not know he was the touring bassist, guitarist, and keyboardist for 9 Inch Nails for a little bit. He was Beck's bassist and musical director from 96 until mid-2016. How did that collaboration come about?
We had done the first album with Joe Ciccarelli, and going into the second record, it was off of like 2.5, 3 years of touring, straight from the first record. We were a bit burnt out. We were renting a house, and we built like a studio in the basement of the house, which was like this very soundproof, very dark, like theater room. And so JMJ was kind of on our list. He had recently done Hurry Up We're Dreaming by M83, which was it was like a double album. I think it was like 22 songs on the record. It was just such a magical kind of sonic world that they created for that album. And then all the work he did with Beck. I mean, we just absolutely loved kind of so many things that JMJ has been a part of. So when we were looking for a producer, we kind of had it narrowed down, and he was kind of on our, top 3 list. And then he came by to the house we were renting and listened to the songs, and he was just so attentive, just very present with us, very articulate. And we just felt a level of excitement and desire to work with him on the record, because he just seemed invested and interested in like diving in and building a world. He's a true artist, he's a bass player, but he's also a incredible multi-instrumentalist. I mean, he has an incredible synth collection and just collector of gear, and
He's the guy in the room that the rest of us musicians, quote unquote, like we're jealous of.
Gear wise, for sure. He's just an awesome guy. We had a great time recording with him, and it was really a response to the first record, and we're so proud of that first record. It's been a while now. It's been about 15 years now from that first record, but we wanted a different recording process. We wanted a different ethos in the studio, and I think we felt that JMJ would bring a level of kind of experimentation and less rigidity and more just like experimenting. And I think that's where songs like Mind Over Matter and songs where more synthesizer heavy songs and drum machines and electronic influences.
I'm definitely hearing more moving parts here than the first record.
Yes.
On this whole production. And you said something that I've never talked about ever on this show that just really resonated with me. You mentioned that he was present. And I've worked with many different producers, as you have. And some of them are very present, almost to the point where you're like, dude, back off. And then other ones just, I'm going to leave and go get a sandwich. And they come back in 3 hours. You're like, what are you doing? And I've always kind of found that the end result is the same. We get a record out of it. I like the guy that rolls the sleeves up and he's right there working next and the ideas are coming. And that sounds like what you were getting here.
Yeah, I feel like for this particular record, we really wanted someone who was in it with us and excited with us, and it wasn't just a kind of clock in, clock out. I think that with JMJ being an artist himself, I think he really is invested and intrigued by the artfulness and the artistic side and the getting into the nitty gritty of the building the sonic landscape and that's I think what we were looking for on this record.
Well, the song is 5th out of 13 on the album. It was released as the 3rd single. It's arguably one of your biggest standout songs for Young the Giant. Over 250 million Spotify plays. Was there a reason it was the 3rd single? Did you not know what you had on your hands here?
It's funny. I think deep down we did know that it was a special song on the album. I mean, we named the album after the song.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think that the team around us at the time, and not in any way speaking negatively, but I think that the overall sentiment was that our first album was a lot more guitar-driven, kind of indie rock. And I think the idea was that the song Mind Over Matter was quite a departure sonically from that first album. And so we ended up putting out It's About Time, which is a song on the second record, as our first single. And I think in the back of my mind, I love It's About Time, but in the back of my mind, I did feel there was something really special about Mind Over Matter in terms of just the songwriting aspect. And it's cool now to see that over 10 years later, a song that was a 3rd single that didn't necessarily stick that much when it came out is now, arguably our biggest song or one of our biggest songs.
I love that. I've seen that before, and thank you for not making the same record twice. That's a bold move for a young band. I think that you kind of tested the waters a little bit. Say, yeah, the first single has to kind of harken back to the band, and I think for a young band that probably was the right decision, but I'm glad that you pushed forward. I'm glad that you got Justin to make a record like this. I think it's absolutely fantastic, and no diss against the band. Who knows if we'd be talking right now if you hadn't have taken that chance.
Right. Yeah. Definitely.
And we never know where our careers are going to go in that moment of, we'll release it as the 3rd single and now here we are.
Yeah.
Before we get into the song, Eric, I want to ask you, did you demo the track?
We did. And like I mentioned, we were in a house together and we built a studio in the kind of basement theater room. And yeah, we demoed the song. The kind of first spark that was initiated, I remember myself and our drummer Francois were in the studio. And the way that it was a small theater room, and the way that it worked is that it kind of had like steps up. So the high, where you normally put the chair so you could see the screen that comes down, and Francois had his drums on the top level. So it was really like the ceiling. His head was almost, Franz is, pretty tall guy, but his head was almost touching the ceiling. It was such a small space for the drums. And so the initial recording was almost like this trip hop kind of really small sounding thing. And, I was just getting into synthesizers. So I had this Prophet synthesizer and a Nord. And so we're playing, and I'm playing kind of the synth and the strings on the Nord, and Fran's playing this really tight drum beat. And so we made a demo of it. Everyone kind of in the band came in, and we just kind of fleshed out this song. And we actually put out the demo on the 10-year anniversary vinyl.
And if the world don't break, I'll be shaking it, 'cause I'm a young man after all. And when the seasons change, will you stay?
How big of a difference we talking here from the demo to the final recording?
I'd say the essence of the songs in there.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And
I meant arrangement and stuff.
Yeah,
Obviously, all the
yeah.
bells and whistles later. But
Yeah. Well, I would say like the essence of, the, it's not an acoustic guitar and a vocal.
Sure.
This particular song was one where the production or the sounds that we used, the instruments that we used very much wrote the song, was in tandem with writing the song. And it actually was kind of the moment where we realized, wait, like, maybe Eric, who's the guitar player, can write a song on the synthesizer for this band. And then everyone else, I feel like we allowed ourselves from there on to kind of move around, and everyone kind of dabbled in different instrumentation and drum machines and synthesizers and things that we hadn't really used before in our music, just to kind of come at the songwriting in a new angle.
that's a huge hurdle for some bands, for a lot of bands to get through.
Yeah.
They can't get behind the idea, like, I'm the drummer. You couldn't possibly write a drum part for this band. And
Yeah.
a lot of bands don't get past that.
Yeah, it took time, but everyone's very much, I think, about getting the best song, and whatever way that comes between the five of us, whether that's our singer writing a bass part or our bass player writing a drum groove or whatever that is. I think it's we've gotten better at that over the years, but it wasn't always that way.
All hands on deck. I love it. The song is 4 minutes and 4 seconds. We get a nice drum fill, and a piano slide brings us into 8 bars of a low distorted bass synth and a main keyboard hook. We get a nice string melody that comes in near the end of the intro to bring us into verse 1. And man, these strings, it reminds me, and when I hear strings that are this pronounced and like, yeah, this is what it's supposed to be, this is the part, they're not buried. It's like that 70s AM radio. And I don't say that like it's hokey or cheesy. I love it. It takes me back to I love those strings. They just, if they're executed and done well, they make me feel good. And this is awesome.
Oh, wow. Thank you. That just getting into it, the song, I just realized how much it's a great podcast. I mean, the amount of depth that you're going into with every single
thank you.
component of the song. Yeah, the strings started out as like a single note Nord line, da-da-da-da-da-da. And the synth, it started out with, it was a Prophet 8. It's a Prophet 8 synthesizer, a Dave Smith Instruments Prophet synth that was doing the both the bass, the synth bass in the original demo, and then the dun dun dun, the melody. But then when going in with JMJ, we beefed it up. I mean, we wanted the synth bass to be at the time, the fattest, the juiciest synth bass part.
Yeah.
So at one point JMJ went over to his modular and just like made the most, bassy, juicy synth bass part, and then we ended up layering that intro melody with like 3 or 4 synth sounds. So we really just were throwing paint at the wall, getting it to sound as as exciting as we could. And
well, I mean, at some point, how much better sonically can we get? I mean, there's always going to be new sounds, I guess, ways to push it, and AI and all these different things that are happening every single day. There's new technology, but this song's now 11 years old, and you can't tell me from a production standpoint it's dated at all. It sounds absolutely current and massive.
Oh wow! Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean that's a testament, I think, to JMJ. Really helping us get the song to kind of expand it sonically.
And let's talk about this vocal we're going to get into in verse 1. I mean, it just hits you. I don't know. I use this term a lot on the show that when I believe somebody when they sing, I believe a lyric, and I'm just hooked from the minute the vocal starts. It's awesome.
Mind over matter, does it matter to any of us? Don't change the subject, I'm heavy on your love. I lost that train, New York City, erase. Fly to East LA in big jet planes, you're on my mind.
Mind over matter, does it matter to any of us? Don't change the subject, I'm heavy on your love. I missed that train, New York City, it rains. Fly to East LA in big jet planes. You're on my mind. And who wrote the lyric, Eric?
Samir, our singer, wrote the lyrics. And
you wrote this one. Okay.
I love this song melodically, lyrically. I love how this particular song kind of broke us out of a stagnation point where we were all in our heads thinking, do we need to make another record like the first record? And so I think the mind over matter idea in and of itself was the kind of like breaking through that writer's block or whatever it is. And I think what I've heard him describe this song as is like him flipping the lens and looking at his relationship and his loved one as like, not having the spotlight on him, but having the spotlight on singing to her.
You expounded a little bit there because I was going to ask you, some lyrics just don't let you in. They, I've talked to guys who are like, I don't really know what this is about. He just keeps it private or they keep it private. How forthcoming is Samir with sharing that? If you were to ask, or when you're writing, are you allowed to interject and say, hey, this might be better flipped here? Or how does that work within Young the Giant?
Yeah, well, it's shifted over time. I feel like there's certain songs where we don't, and he doesn't know what they're necessarily about, and
that's good.
and the after the fact explanation can be assumed or guessed or kind of like left to the audience or the listener. I mean, to decipher. But over the years, the early records, the first 2 records, Samir wrote a bulk of the lyrics. And starting on record 3, we started collaborating. And since record 3 and 4 and 5 and now into 6, it's become more and more collaborative. And myself and the drummer are songwriters as well. And so now it's a very collaborative process. And yeah, we end up, our favorite songs tend to be the ones, not always, but a lot of times my favorites are the ones where it's initially gibberish in the demo, and then it's decoding the gibberish, and so sometimes we'll do it that way, where the melodies and the gibberish in the demo gets kind of deciphered.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
and that's one of my favorite things. And then going back and kind of tweaking that code that you've deciphered. And
don't underestimate that stream of consciousness. It's very valuable sometimes.
Absolutely. And that can wield really, I feel like, metaphoric and interesting and poetic results that become those songs where you're like, I don't know exactly what this means, but makes me feel this way, or it makes me feel nostalgic, or it makes me feel a sense of longing, or, which tends to be my favorite songs, like always, are the ones that make me feel, emotional and nostalgic and maybe melancholic.
I used to get so lost in songs when I was, when first growing up and really getting into music. I'd get lost in the lyric and just look what's here, the imagery. I miss that train, New York City, it rains, fly to East LA in big jet planes. I mean, not a lot of people can fly to East LA in big jet planes, or they haven't yet, or maybe they're 15 or 16 and haven't gotten out and traveled. They're still living with mom and dad, but absolutely love it. Great use of falsetto here with Samir. Halfway through verse 1 on I Miss That Train, on I, we get these single synth stabs panned left and right, and these little hooks. Let's talk about those for a second. They're awesome. The one panned off to the left, and then there's another one that's kind of like more ambient to the right. They happen at the same time. Were those played with in mixing? They were there, you kind of put them up, or were you like, no, this is where they're going. They're not placeholders. This is the stab part, because they're really unique.
In the original demo, I believe they were just either like a mix of guitar stabs with like the Nord strings with a bunch of reverb just kind of stabbed on the offbeats.
I miss that train, New York City, the rains fly.
And then they ended up on the record. I believe it's the strings maybe mixed with either guitar or synth or something.
It sounds like a guitar rake.
Yeah, guitar rake, and then the strings doing it.
Miss that train, New York City, erase.
We had that I believe we had that in the original demo. But yeah, all of those kind of offbeat stabs and there's a lot of little kind of candy in this in this song and on this record, and it's definitely testament to just our want for, exploring sounds and kind of tinkering.
Oh, well, the tinkering is great, because I love how the song builds. It's just every time a part comes in, there's something new here. Those stabs come in on I Miss That Train, on City, on Fly, and on Planes. And on the last line, you're on my mind. The high synth strings follow the vocal melody here.
You're on my mind.
It's so genius. It's such an easy thing that a lot of times you forget to do. Well, hey, let's just mimic the lead vocal with a guitar, and you don't do it. And when you hear bands that do, in this instance, you're like, oh, it's genius. Who thought of that?
I don't want to be like, I thought of that, but
it's such a hook. It's so hit me over the head simple, but it's obvious, but it's perfect.
Yeah, I don't remember. I think when we first kind of got in and started writing the song, and I was playing with the Nord strings, I think a lot of those kind of the meat and potatoes of the part were there, and then Roger kind of took the bass level, and if you listen to the demo, I think they're in there, but Roger Manning took the bass level kind of Nord string part, which included the little descending line that follows Samir's vocal into the chorus, and then just exploded it into this beautiful arrangement. But I believe the verse stuff was kind of baked in there in the demo when we first originally wrote the song.
I love it. And I've heard things in music that if it's not done right, it could end up making it sound not as powerful. I hate using the word wimpy, but it's like, oh, here comes the synth part. Again, it's loud here. You're not ashamed that here's the part. It's coming in and it just lifts this chorus up. I also find it interesting. The chorus comes in a beat. The vocal comes in a beat into the chorus. On my mind, and then and the chorus starts.
You're on my mind. And if the world don't break, I'll be shaking it. 'Cause I'm a young man after all. And when the seasons change, will you stand by me? 'Cause I'm a young man built to fall.
And interesting here, before we get into the lyrics, it starts off with "and" for a chorus.
Yeah.
Which a lot of producers over the years you can't start a chorus with "and."
Yeah, it's funny. We I don't remember that coming up. And it's fine. I never even thought about that until right now.
When you stare at a chorus,
yeah, when you look
as
at
many
the words,
as I do, looking at lyrics, and I'm going, and it doesn't look right. But I never thought of it until I stared at it, because when you're listening to the song, it's perfect. You would never say you can't start a song with that, but it really jumps off the page here when you're looking at it. Chorus 1 comes in at the 39-second mark, and if the world don't break, I'll be shaking it. 'Cause I'm a young man after all. And when the seasons change, will you stand by me? 'Cause I'm a young man built to fall.
The feeling, I would say, collectively with this song and with this record was absolutely, there was frustration of where do we go now? And it was only our second record, but it's that common theme for the sophomore record. Coming off our first record, we were really fortunate. It had a couple songs on the radio, and we toured for 3 years or so on it. And so coming back from that, there was a level of frustration of how do we go about making a record together? How do we go about writing songs together? Do we attempt to do it in the exact same way as we did it before? And I think that this chorus is kind of significant for us as a band, because I really do think it was the moment that we said, you know what, we're going to try something completely different. We're going to approach songwriting in a completely different way. And Samir, with this chorus, I think really nailed where we were at collectively, the feeling of wanting to break through and make something that was special to us and that was different. And I think that, those lyrics, you can kind of hear that there's a bit of desperation in there.
There's desperation, but you're also asking, will you stand by me? You're asking for help. There is that desperation. Right? I love the lyrics of this chorus. The vocal is doubled here, along with clean guitar, bass guitar, drums. The bass guitar tone is just ripping. It is so funky, and it just has its own pocket here. 'Cause I'm a young man after all. Right after that, we get this vocal hook. It has a harmony on this ooh 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 part. You could have done a million things there. Why that melody? And was that the melody that was there from the beginning? Do you recall?
Oh, I don't even remember if that was in there from the beginning.
It could have been a whoa oh oh. It could have been a number of things, and I always marvel on that, because I'm going to use the word again. It's perfect. It's great.
Oh man. Well, thank you. Yeah, I really don't remember. I think on that one, Samir just has. I mean, his voice and his range is just incredible. But his ability to fill in gaps as well. I mean, with melodic information. I mean, he's a musical singer. He's a musical person. I mean, he's a multi-instrumentalist, and that's something that I think people might look at a band and say, oh, that's the drummer and he plays the drums. Well, our drummer writes songs and is a multi-instrumentalist, and our singer is, and everyone in the band I could say that about. And with Samir, when he's singing, he's thinking almost more so about the song as a whole and how the vocal fits into it than necessarily just like what is the vocal isolated,
Team player. Love it. Well, there's also the string synth running through chorus 1. That is an amazing counter melody to the lead vocal. And on the last line, 'cause I'm a young man built to fall, we get that ooey ooh. The ooh is a different note. And then Samir I wrote he kind of scats after that, kind of does the ooh, kind of goes off and does his own little soulful tag there at the end of the chorus. Before we get into the re-intro for 8 bars, the almost human ooh voicings are louder here on the re-intro as opposed to the intro. Bass guitar and drums are also present, and right at the end, another synth hook takes us into verse 2.
Mind over matter, I'm in practice thinking about her. Taste my disaster, it's heavy on my tongue. All the lights aglow, Tokyo snows. Go to watch the show, curtains closed. I'm watching you this time.
Mind over matter, I'm in tatters thinking about her. Taste my disaster, it's heavy on my tongue. All the lights aglow. Tokyo snows. Go to watch the show. Curtains closed. I'm watching you this time. I think the Rolling Stones were the only other band I ever heard use the word tatters in a song. I don't recall anybody else. Interesting lyric there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, on this song, as I mentioned, Samir went in, wrote some beautiful lyrics. And I remember thinking, how cool it was after, years of touring on that first record that he kind of flips the script and I'm watching you this time, curtains closed. It's like a switch of the lens from us feeling like the lens was on us because of, putting out our first record and touring and being in front of a lot of people with our music. But yeah, no, tatters. It's funny you bring these things up when you really dissect a song. I didn't even really think about that.
it's that stone. The shattered. He says. I think he says tattered in there.
Hey everybody, don't go anywhere. We got lots more coming up with Eric Cannata after a few words from our sponsors.
Looking to elevate your music career? DistroKid is a digital music distribution service that enables musicians to distribute their music to online stores and streaming platforms such as Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube Music, Amazon, Tidal, and many more. DistroKid collects earnings and payments, sending them to you, the artist. With DistroKid, artists unlock a world of possibilities. From easily paying collaborators with splits to securing your music with DistroLock, DistroKid covers all bases. Plus, you can promote your releases with Hyperfollow and create eye-catching visuals with a Spotify Canvas generator, all for free. But that's not all. Introducing the DistroKid app, now available on iOS and Android. Artists can manage their releases, view streaming stats, and withdraw earnings, all from the palm of their hand. And for those looking to perfect their sound, check out Mixia. With its simple interface and customizable mastering options, artists can make their music sound polished and professional within minutes. And don't forget about Instant Share, DistroKid's newest feature. Share large files securely with collaborators, producers, and more, ensuring your music streams at the highest quality. Ready to take your music to the next level? Download the DistroKid app and explore their suite of tools today. Plus, listeners can enjoy 30% off their first year by visiting distrokid.com/VIP/demakes. That's distrokid.com/VIP/demakes.
Still getting around to that fix on your car? You got this. On eBay, you'll find millions of parts guaranteed to fit. Doesn't matter if it's a major engine repair or your first time swapping your windshield wipers. eBay has that part you need, ready to click perfectly into place for changes big and small. Loud or quiet, find all the parts you need at prices you'll love. Guaranteed to fit every time. But you already know that. eBay. Things, people, love. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
Have you ever spotted McDonald's hot, crispy fries right as they're being scooped into the carton? And time just stands still. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Which Manning brother will win the FanDuel Kick of Destiny 3 on Super Bowl Sunday? Peyton or Eli? Watch the showdown live on Super Bowl Sunday. Plus, new customers bet $5 and get $200 if your bet wins. Only on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.
21 plus and present in Virginia. Must be first online real money wager. $5 deposit required. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable bonus vest that expires 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See full terms at FanDuel.com/sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Hello, Tom May here, host of Future Friday. I've spent the last 15 years on the road with my band, The Menzingers, where I've met all kinds of wild and fascinating people. So I started a podcast. On Future Friday, I talk to fellow musicians about the moments that made them, their passions outside of music, and the curiosities that tie us all together. I've also talked to the likes of UFO researchers, magicians, soldiers, and documentary filmmakers, and I'm constantly searching for folks that can shape and change our view of the world. You can check out Future Friday wherever you like.
Bowie,
Dylan, Marley. You've heard the names and maybe you've heard their songs, but what about the stories behind the records that made titans of music like these so universally loved and important? Join me, Josh Adam Myers, host of The 500, as each week I go through a different album from Rolling Stone magazine's 500 Greatest Albums list from 2012 with an incredible lineup of comedians, actors, and musicians talking about how the music has impacted their lives. New episodes of The 500 come out every Wednesday. Listen now wherever you get your podcasts.
And now, back to the show.
You know what I loved about verse 2? Because you said we were kind of toying with, what do we do here now? Do we strip it back a little bit? Do we add some extra nuances? It took me about 5 or 6 listens of A being verse 2 and verse 1 to come to my conclusion here of what's going on. I wrote the main synth and drums are here, again like verse 1. But we are hearing way more synth stabs, amazing string accompaniments, and other delayed and reverbed sounds. Things like a guitar pick scraping at the end of the headstock. You know, those little, I think that was a noise I heard.
Yeah.
But the drums also have an ambient type of delay, like almost like a push and pull that's happening here. But it wasn't so much different than verse 1. You had to listen to it. It was the subtleties of that's going on here that makes the verse interesting for me.
Yeah, the second verse, if I remember correctly, I think we did kind of pay homage to the trip hop kind of. I think Fran was doing a little more on the snare, maybe.
Yes, there was a little more funky.
That a little more snare ghost notes, and then remember JMJ added a drum machine part that was thrown through like a reverb or a delay or something. And then
that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, that's the additional electronic drums is like a pattern with a bunch of like kind of, it's almost like there's like a clav sound and there's like a wood block sound or something that like it with a hi-hat, with a really tight electronic hi-hat that's kind of playing off of Francois's live drums.
Oh, it's so
and
cool.
Then I'm sure Jacob played the behind the headstock guitar jangle thing to give it some kind of guitar ambience.
Yeah, no, I think you, in terms of overdoing it or not, I think what here is absolutely perfect. The last line, I'm watching you this time. We get that synth again, along with the vocal melody together to bring us into chorus 2. The lyrics here in chorus 2, same as chorus 1, but the guitars and keys panned off right are a bit louder than chorus 1 here, I noticed. I also noticed that the guitar panned off right is busier here. It's almost like you're playing 16th notes versus 8th notes there off to the right. And it makes me feel as if this chorus is moving a little bit faster here, even though I know it's right on the click. It sounds a little more urgent because of the guitar playing becoming faster. Was that ever discussed or talked about?
It might have been. And I really can't remember on that, but it's so cool. This is opening up just like remembering that process. And, I'm sure, it could have been Jacob just naturally.
Let me add one thing real quick.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was played faster or if the delay was sped up on the track and it was the same track as the first chorus. It was just put some effects were put on. I really can't tell, but whatever it's doing there.
Yeah.
I heard it. And
could be the same part with it. Yeah.
Yeah. I kept listening to it going, why does this feel a little more urgent, like it's moving quicker? And it's definitely that guitar. We also get some really subtle harmonies here on the second line on Shaking It and on the line, Will You Stand By Me? On By Me, we get, it's very buried. It's a low harmony back there. But again, it's just little nuances and something different from chorus 1. On the last line, because I'm a young man built to fall, we get the ooh, ooh, alone, but it's a different melody there. I like that.
Amazing. Yeah. This is just the nuance, I think, when we were talking about, our want to kind of explore as a band, and then met with JMJ's attention to detail, you know, and that presence. I think we really went in on this one, and
I mean, well, now the next part, now to me, you're in with the greats. You're in with the bands that are timeless. You're in with the,
man, thank you.
You know, the U2s, and I mean that, like the production. This next part to me is the song. This is my favorite part. I'm calling this part the post-chorus.
New York City, in big jet planes, you know you're on my mind. Tokyo snows, curtains closed, I'm watching you this time.
I miss that train. New York City, it rains. Fly east to LA in big jet planes. You know you're on my mind. All the lights aglow. Tokyo snows. Go watch the show. Curtains closed. I'm watching you this time. And what I love about this post-chorus, it's like an amalgamation of the other verses. You're getting that lyrical imagery again from there, but everything is totally different here musically, the different vocals that come in, and we'll get there in a second. But let's talk about these lyrics when Samir had brought him in this part. Did Justin or anybody else, yourself, say, there needs to be more here, or was this it? Because I think how it is how it needs to be. But a lot of times we'll start second guessing in this process. Like, where are we going here? Is this the bridge, or what were you calling this part? I call it the post-chorus.
Yeah, for sure. I would say the post-chorus. Yeah, I think with this song, it just felt right to go into that, because it is the pre-chorus melody and the pre-chorus lyrics. And yeah, it just felt right putting that over the post, and the level of dynamic and instrumentation of the chorus with that falsetto pre-chorus lyrics felt really right to us. And we ended up layering voices on that, including Samir's wife, who isn't necessarily traditionally a singer, came in and recorded vocals on top of that as well, which was a really special moment in the studio.
That is really neat. That is
so
cool.
the high female vocal is Jessie, Samir's wife.
Oh, that is amazing. Well, on I Miss That Train, we get these unison vocals, falsetto. On the next line, New York City, it rains. There's a subtle harmony there. Fly to East LA, unison vocals, falsetto. The next line, in big jet planes, is just a subtle harmony. You know you're on my mind. That's just Samir on the lead vocal. All the lights aglow, unison vocal, falsetto. Tokyo snows, we get a harmony. And Go Watch the Show is that vocal falsetto. Curtains closed, a harmony. And then we get a harmony on the line Time on the last line, which brings us into 8 bars of atmospheric, spacey keys and delays.
Watching you this time.
What a great breath of relief this part is. But it also has tension before we get into the next section. Want to back up a couple more things here in the post-chorus. The tambourine goes to single hits, panned off right. Those single hits on that tambo, it just makes it heavy. Yeah. And it's so funny because I remember having a discussion years ago before Blink were superstars. It was with Tom DeLonge, and he said, Lagwagon got so much grief. They like, for what? He's like, they put a tambourine on their last album, and that just wasn't punk rock. You don't do that, right? Someone would have told me the single hit tambourine that 25 years later, I'd think that was the coolest thing in the world. And here it is, that bang, that on the one there makes it super heavy. The keys panned off right also get busier on this post-chorus. And then we get into this relief part that I'm talking about. Let's talk about that. This whole next 30 seconds of this song are so interesting to me.
Really, it felt like by the end of the post-chorus, I think we just felt like we needed to fall off the ledge and kind of build back up into the last chorus. And I remember on the demo, it's like it's so funny sounding. when we went to record the real thing, I just remember, this breakdown moment. Like you said, building the tension into the last chorus.
Have you ever done that before with a song, though? I've done it to where you're like, we need to break it down. It needs to get away from this.
Yeah.
And you do it and it kind of fizzles out and you can never get it back up to the excitement it was before. It doesn't do that here at all. It makes it more exciting for me, but I've had it work the opposite way.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it was something we attempted a lot, and it would work every once in a while. But yeah, I absolutely understand that, a lot of times you have this momentum going in a song and whatever the groove is in the rhythm section, and you cut that out, and the feeling of your interest waning or just wanting to cut to the, turn the song off or go to the next song is absolutely real. And for this particular song, I feel like there was so much information, like we've been talking about, all of the minutiae, all the little details, and so much information, almost wall of sound, to the point where by this point, it's like you said, it's almost like, oh, thank God. Like I need this breath, because, we just kind of gave a lot of information.
It's relief, but it's tension. It's suspenseful. Mm-hmm. It keeps me hooked. And the next part, I don't know what you guys were referring it to, but I'm calling this the bridge.
Yeah.
Mind over matter. Mind over matter. I know you're on my mind.
This part is awesome. The lyric is pretty straightforward. It's mind over matter, mind over matter. You know you're on my mind. When the mind over matters come in, a single kick drum comes in with the lead vocal and the atmospheric synths underneath it all. On the line, you know you're on my mind. The synth is there again along with the vocals, but there's no band this time. It's just vocals and synth. And man, does that hit and really bring you back in. But another twist and turn here. We kind of go into another lull part, because following this is now what I'm calling a post chorus or a post bridge part with a very loud and pronounced pronounced synths and strings for 8 bars.
Yeah, and a new guitar line, I think.
Yeah,
a new melody.
What was that about? Because you could have went right into chorus 3 there. What was the thinking?
This is really reminding me in a good way of, this was 2014. So we were in our early to mid 20s. This is our second record. And we went into the process of making this record wanting to try different approaches to how we've been songwriting. And I think structure, it also fell into that kind of how we approach the structure. And I think that was one of the things where we said, well, why don't we just try an instrumental, the beginning of the last chorus instrumentally, and see how that feels. And we were very open to just like chopping things and trying different iterations when we were in the writing process. And yeah, it felt really nice to come in and have that counter melody with the new guitar, like high pitched guitar counter melody. And I think it was just kind of testament to us wanting to explore different structures.
A lot of the times when I'm breaking these songs out, I put them in the context of what I would do within my band. And I'm sitting here going, okay, either I would have thought about this part and everyone would have been like, would have hated it. Like, why is this here? Why didn't you just start singing the chorus? Or they would have all been like, yeah, we should have this relief part. And I would have been the one going, why isn't the chorus starting? That's why I sit out of the producer's chair. We get into, right out of this part, we get into chorus 3.
Cause I'm a young man after all. And when the seasons change, will you stand by me? Cause I'm a young man built to fall. Ain't the world no friend?
And if the world don't break, I'll be shaking it because I'm a young man after all. We get the ooey-oo vocal hook there. And then this is when everything starts to change. On the back half, I missed that train. We get those unison vocals there. And when the seasons change, will you stand by me? We get a harmony on that. Fly to East LA. We get those unison vocals in falsetto again. Because I'm a young man built to fall. All the lights aglow. And if the world don't break, Tokyo snows. Go to watch the show. Curtains close. This is all existing with the ooh-ooh-ooh of the lead vocal. And if the world don't break is between the two call and response vocals here at the very end of this part. Kitchen sink. Okay, everything's happening. But I think the greatest strength here is repeating these lyrical hooks in these imageries because they're beautiful. The Tokyo snows and everything that's happening here. And yes, there is so much going on, but because it's so repetitious, it gets into your head and you can't get it out.
Yeah, that was something that I feel like we did a lot more on earlier records, whereas that, like you mentioned, kitchen sink. And sometimes it just feels like a lazy solution. Like, it's the last chorus, throw everything in there. But yeah, with this song, I feel like the melodies, the lead melody and that pre-chorus and that post-chorus, the falsetto part, felt like it fit really nicely together. And then on top of that, I mean, we really went like ham in terms of layering. And I remember we wanted one final sound on the last chorus, and JMJ, being the kind of synth guru that he is, put this beautiful like chimey synth arpeggio on the last chorus that just like makes it sound like you're in a psychedelic rainstorm or something.
It's so chirpy and good. And then at the end here we get this like outro, this coda, this beautiful. What this part does to me, it makes me want to rewind the song, and we're going to talk about that in a second. The lyric is, and when the seasons change, will you stand by me? Because I'm a young man built to fall. It's just vocals and bass synth, single notes, and the synth here. After, because I'm a young man built to fall, we get just a vocal of the ooh-ee-ooh part and an unresolved synth. Doesn't go back to the root note of F. I love it. It goes to the E minor. It leaves us with what I'm calling beautiful tension. It's the cliffhanger. It doesn't resolve. The song makes me feel so good, but I feel like I have unfinished business at the end. I got to go back and listen to it. That's what it does to me. I heard this song the other day when I took my son for a haircut. And I'm sitting there and I'm listening to it and I'm like, I get to break this down in a couple days. And it just sounded so good coming over of the PA of that place. And I've said this, and we touched on it a little bit at the top, but I've said this to other artists, but congratulations.
Thank you.
This song eclipses probably everything you ever set out to do as a band. I'm personally, I'm sure. You're part of Rock and Roll Legend, and the track is everywhere. And congratulations!
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. This is just such a cool approach to diving so deeply into it, and it's awesome to hear someone who is listening to the song and able to dissect it in the way that you are. So appreciate you doing this.
Thank you for saying that. But oh my gosh, my listeners know my appreciation for songs, I can look at them differently. I don't look at them anymore whether I like it or not. It's how did this band, these people connect all these emotions and feelings and get them onto record. Whether I like it or not it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's this sold this many copies. This was a hit on this level. It's part of everyone's everyday life, and this song's definitely part of that. You guys released 5 albums total. The past summer of 2024, Young the Giant did an arena tour with Cage the Elephant, where you guys played Madison Square Garden and the Forum in LA. That is just, come on, doesn't get much bigger than that. And Eric, you just released a solo debut album, Holding On to the Holy, January 24th, a couple days ago. What's happening with that?
Oh, wow. I'm feeling really proud. I put together this solo album. Yeah, I did it, a lot of it kind of on my own in a home studio, and brought in my father, played piano on a couple songs. My wife helped write and sang on a couple songs. I went out to a studio in Idlewild, California with my friend John O'Brien to cut drums with this amazing drummer named Costa while I recut the bass. And yeah, it just feels like where I'm at, you know, as a human. I just got married in October of 2024.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So yeah, and holding on to the holy, it's kind of my reminder to myself to be present and put focus on the people and the things in my life that are holy to me, which are, you know, my wife and my family and my friends and music and art, and trying to be more present with the good in my life, because, you know, there are so many things going on in the world that are seemingly, you know, intense and falling apart. So it was kind of the album serves as a reminder to myself. But yeah, it's 10 songs. I'm very proud of it. And yeah, I hope people enjoy listening to it.
Awesome. Before we run, what else is coming up with Young the Giant? What do you guys got happening? Young
the Giant is in the process of writing and getting in to record our 6th album. We've been doing kind of these writing retreats where we get out of town, almost like a little camp, just to kind of get back to the joy of being creative together, bring it back to, you know, when we were younger and we all lived together. And yeah, we're really excited. We played a couple new songs on the tour over the summer with Cage. And yeah, we're just kind of in the thick of writing the 6th album and getting ready to record it this year. And yeah, so more on that soon.
Awesome. Well, listen, Eric, thank you so much for taking the time out today. Congratulations on your marriage and your new home in Tennessee.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate you, man.
It's time to feel the wave. They say what they all say. Armageddon is just doomsday. I'm just dancing in the foyer, celebrating when the wave comes. Sky is blue.
Hey everybody, the song you're hearing right now is called The Wave, and it's from Eric Cannata's new album called Holding On to the Holy. So make sure you check that out wherever you listen to music. And don't go anywhere. We got lots more Krista Makes a Podcast coming right up after a few words from our sponsors.
Hello everybody, I'm Bruce.
And I'm Nolan, and this is the Corner of Gray Street podcast. As longtime Dave Matthews Band fans, we set out to create a podcast to dive deep into the past, present, and future of DMB.
Not only do we recap and review shows within an ongoing tour, but we revisit past shows from throughout the band's history, conduct interviews with a wide variety of guests with ties to DMB, and create unique and exclusive content like our Concerts on the Corner series.
Whether you're a fan of the band or just a fan of great music, we think you'll find something you'll enjoy. We can't wait to see you on the Corner of Gray Street.
One Hit Thunder is a podcast where we both celebrate and have a good laugh about bands and artists that had just one hit that we all know. Each week, we're joined by a guest from the world of music or comedy to learn more than you ever thought you would about some songs that you can't forget. And we decide if they brought the One Hit Thunder or were nothing more than a one-hit blunder. Look, if you listen to the show, you're probably going to laugh, and I guarantee you're going to crush next time the bar has music trivia. Tag Team, Jane Child, Meredith Brooks, Looking Glass, Sean Mullins, Eiffel 65, EMF, Crash Test Dummies, Crazy Town, Chumbawamba. We have hundreds of episodes in our back catalog and a new episode each week, so pass the Dutchie, make sure you're connected, and subscribe to One Hit Thunder wherever you get your pods.
Welcome to us talking about our podcast for a minute.
What's the name of that podcast?
That's Axe to Grind, and right now you're going to be getting a little taste of it, right down to the shaky microphone and all.
And my name's Bob.
And my name's Patrick, and usually we're joined by Tom.
Tom's the best. Tom has a real grown-up job that requires him to be at work, but we talk about decidedly not so grown-up things like
hardcore music and things that people that like hardcore music tend to like.
So that could be the latest shows, revisiting classic material, talking about the new classics, all the little dorm room nonsense that you imagine from niche music podcasts that you either love, want to love, or hate.
Yeah, imagine all the emotions that you have towards a genre that has impacted your life, and then condense them down to an hour to 2 hours a week.
So triangulate your speakers, think about jumping off the bed, singing along, dancing like an idiot, and listen to Axe to Grind podcast.
Hi, this is Chad Nicefield.
And this is Justin Press.
We're the host of Making Waves, the Shiprock podcast, a part of the Sound Talent Media Podcast Network. We're inviting you to sail away with us on an epic journey in musical enlightenment. Every week, we bring you only the best artists in rock music and discuss everything from the cruise, to the stage, to the saga of being a professional recording artist. We'll have lots of special guests along the way, so tune in every week.
Your stateroom is available every Monday morning, so welcome aboard.
Hi, I'm Hal Schwartz.
And I'm Flynn McLean. We want to tell you about our podcast, None But the Brave, which is dedicated to taking a deep dive into the work of Bruce Springsteen.
We're currently in our 5th season. Our latest episodes focus heavily on Bruce's 2024 tour and have featured such guests as Anthony Castrovince from MLB Network and Barstool's Kirk Minahan.
We're also covering the 40th anniversary of Bruce's biggest record, Born in the USA. And as part of that, coming up this week, Uprock's cultural critic Stephen Hyden returns to the show for a fascinating hour-long conversation about his new book, There Was Nothing You Could Do, Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA and the End of the Heartland.
To listen, you can go to our website, mbtbpodcast.com, or subscribe on your preferred podcasting platform.
We hope to see you further on up the road.
Thank you so much. We'll be seeing you.
Hey everyone, it's Chris Pandolfi inviting you to check out the new season of my podcast, Inside the Musician's Brain, with new episodes airing now.
Hearing it in that room, these guys playing this thing and trying to figure out how to play this song was mind-blowing. It's so inspiring to know there's so much more to it than you ever thought. And it just opened another door.
But when people find faith because they need to, in terms of just filling a void to feel better without actually being better, that's when it becomes a crutch, much like drugs and alcohol do.
Man, I don't have all the time in the world here. If I want to be a professional bluegrass musician, I felt like I had to take a very strategic approach, just trying to get rid of the barriers and figure out what those barriers were.
The feelings still come and I have to reckon with that, but I think I have better ways of moving forward and not being stuck, which I think was the killer for me.
Catch all that and so much more on the new season of Inside the Musician's Brain.
As we near the end of the show, here's a band you might not know.
Welcome to this week's Band You Might Not Know. If you'd like your band to be considered for Krista Makes a Podcast, email your best song via MP3 only and a short bio to bandyoumightnotknow@gmail.com. This week's feature artist is Fire Roots from Melbourne, Australia, blending punk, alternative rock, and many other genres, as 4 of the 5 band members are from South America. You can find them on all the socials. Here's a snippet of their song, Victoria.
The Wrap with Chris and Chris.
Chris, I think it's always amazing all the connections that you can make with any artist that comes on the show. It is rare that you can't name at least one, if not 3 or 4 people that you've either worked with or through touring or through recording, and you definitely had a bunch here. And what I thought was, this is so funny. He calls him JMJ. We're talking about, what's his name? Justin Meldal-Johnsen?
Justin Meldal-Johnsen. Yep.
Yeah. Dude, I have known who this guy is forever. Every time I watched a Beck live performance, be it on SNL or like a late night show or something, I always watched him. He had big hair and he played bass. I'm a bassist, so maybe I would tend to watch a bassist anyway a little more, but this guy just like stuck out. Just his moves and the way he played bass and everything. And it blew my mind that this guy is a producer, not only of Young the Giant, but of a bunch of albums that I love. I never made that connection until preparing for this episode. Right before, I think one album before this Young the Giant album, he produced the Paramore self-titled album that I love, which I think is one of the best sounding pop rock albums I've ever heard. So I loved that connection alone from this episode.
Yeah, it's amazing. You know, it doesn't matter if it's country, hip hop, rock, producer circles. Everyone kind of knows everybody. That 6 Degrees of Seven, Kevin Bacon or whatever it's called. But
right.
What a song though. Like I said, I heard it the other day over at a PA a couple days before I was gonna break the song down with Eric, and I was like, man, it just sounds good. It just, I don't know, it just makes you feel good.
Yeah, it does. So vibey, you know, and so, you know, the sound of this song, I kind of feel like it's that 2010s sound. I've talked about it before where, you know, the decades they have their sound. You know what the 80s sound is.
Sure.
You know a lot of what the 90s sound is. And it's sometimes hard to, I think the sound, like I've said this before, the sound of the 2000s from like 2000 to 2010 is like bands from our world, the pop punk bands and stuff, and what they call emo bands and stuff. But I feel like the 2010s is the Young the Giant, Foster the People, Tame Impala, that sort of vibey, atmospheric sound mixed with great melodies and stuff.
Oh yeah, and I get that too. And I had mentioned the production on this record. I don't think it sounds dated. I don't think the song sounds like, oh, I think the style of music, you know, to what you were saying, sounds like it's from that period. But you know, this song could have been recorded in the 80s.
Sure.
You know, it's just got that feel about it. It's I would refer to it as timeless in a sense. You know, from you know, just a good, well written pop song.
Yeah, and it's very moody. I love that he talked about, I mean, you and I have talked about this so many times, but decoding the gibberish from the demo. And I do that all the time. Every time I do a demo, it's just what just spills out of my brain and through my mouth. And then sometimes later I go back and like, what was my brain trying to say here? And I pick out that one word or that one line and write the rest of the lyrics around that. Because he said you get really poetic results from that. He actually said, you know, I don't know exactly what this means, but it makes me feel something. I like that, you know?
Well, and I love, you know, sometimes we have guests on that kind of like, you could tell the premise of the show intrigues them, and he'll say stuff. Even Eric today is like, I never thought about that. Like that synth hook before we get in the chorus,
right,
that is just unison with the vocals. Simple idea. But if it wasn't there, it wouldn't hit me like it does, right?
Yeah, I love that he said when he played that, I think he was referring to that melody where he said, there's got to be something better than that. That's the first thing I came up with. Then he's like, are we really going to go with that? That's just the first thing I came up with. But like you said, sometimes something simple is what's memorable and connects with people.
Yeah, and nursery rhymes are testament to that. I brought that up. It's
sure.
like, hey, that you want any proof? There it is.
Yeah, and I love that, you know, right from the start you talked about it, and of course we do it every episode, but you brought it up in context to your conversation with Eric. Just the band you might not know segment we've been doing for 5 years on this show. The amazing songs and recordings that we get literally every day. We get at least one song where we're like, someone may have recorded it at their home studio. You know, people couldn't make these sort of things in their home studios 25 years ago. This is a more recent thing, but it's amazing how the playing field has been leveled, and a song that someone writes in their bedroom and records in their home studio could resonate with millions of people. And every week we feature a song on this show where it's like, why couldn't this song be a huge song. You know, there's a lot of talent, a lot of amazing songs out there in the world.
Yeah, and I also love where this band is going and where they started going with this second record, Mind Over Matter. They were able to put any egos aside. Here, you want to play this instrument, whatever's best for the band. And usually when that's the mindset and you get a producer like Justin Meldal-Johnsen in there, and he's someone that likes to get under the hood and tinker with stuff, oh man, now you're running on all cylinders, because now there's nobody's getting their feelings hurt or my part didn't get used. Who cares? Is the song great? And they hit it out of the park here, Chris.
Dude, you got to just keep in mind when you're playing in a band, you're on a team. You're all working towards one goal. And if you have some sort of ego about me in that process, I think you're going to fail way more than you're going to succeed. I mean, what's the point? What's the point in my idea has to get in there over your idea?
Yep.
If you should just be going with what is the best idea. We're all a team here. And, it sounds like Young the Giant has it right. They're doing it right. And putting the egos aside. You've talked about that lots of times, Chris, where, if someone else can play this part better, here's the guitar. Here's the whatever. If you can sing this part better, step up to the mic. And I think that's a great approach.
That's right. And as far as being on someone's team, thanks each and every one of you for keeping those reviews coming in over at Apple and Spotify. Chris, what do you got for us this week? I know you're going to read one for us.
Yeah, thanks for being on our team and leaving us those 5-star reviews over. On Apple Podcasts, you can write a written review. On Spotify, you can respond to each episode. You can comment on Spotify on the episodes, and I go check those out sometimes and reply to them. But I got an Apple Music or Apple Podcasts, not necessarily Apple Music, review to read for you. It's a 5-star review from Lenore228, who wrote, "Awesome podcast for all music lovers. I've never really been a podcast person, but being a fan of Krista Makes drew me towards this one, and I'm so glad because it's easily one of my favorite things to listen to. The way Chris dissects the songs and pulls things out of them that most people would never even notice is just fascinating, and I love hearing the backstory on each song from the guests. Listening to episodes of some of my favorite ska and punk songs is great, but I also love the breakdowns of songs I haven't thought about in ages from the 90s.
Nice.
All around great podcast that I always recommend to all my friends that love music." That is such a nice review, Lenore. We appreciate that.
Lenore, thank you very much. And if you haven't already, head over to chrisdemakes.com. Before we let you go here, we want you to know about our Patreon that we started here a couple months ago. Chris, tell them what they get.
Yeah, you get weekly bonus episodes of the After Party podcast. We have different tiers where you can get, people have asked for this, Chris, the unedited video versions of the episodes of Krista Makes a Podcast and the After Party. And, all kind of stuff. There's different levels. We're going to have some members of our Patreon come be on the After Party with us. And 2025, we're innovating new ways to get the people that support us involved in the actual podcast too. So, keep your eyes and ears peeled for that. But in the meantime, chrisdemakes.com for a few bucks a month. You can help us continue making this podcast. It really does mean the world to us.
Absolutely. Thanks for everyone listening, not just this week, but every week, and to the back catalog that's out there. You know where to find us on the socials. Want to thank this week's guest, Eric Cannata, for sitting in with us, and we'll see you next week.
Hi, I'm Daniela Clark.
I'm Barbara Ann Wild.
And we are the Honest AF Show.
Our podcast is real honest conversation with our celebrity friends and pros.
Covering our anything but average rock and roll lifestyles.
All while tackling the hell that is aging and the battle of beauty.
Oh yeah, nothing is off the table.
The Honest AF Show is available wherever you get your podcasts.
Every listener to Too Much Effing Perspective knows that my co-host Alan Keller is a music nerd. And right up there in his pantheon with the Beatles and Elvis Costello is The Clash. So Alan, it's one thing for you to be a nerd, but how did you rope in a cool guy, 311's Nick Hexum, into a full-on Clash geek fest on our show?
Well, first of all, Alex, it was your idea.
Oh, right.
Second, Nick actually jammed with The Clash's Joe Strummer in a supergroup that included Flea and Tom Morello.
Okay, well, there is that.
And finally, one member of The Clash cited This Is Spinal Tap, the reason our show even exists, as his favorite movie.
Which one?
Hey, if you want to find out, you got to listen to Too Much Effing Perspective. That's Too Much EFFING Perspective. the only podcast you crank up to 11.